Dr. Persaud, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. 50 years of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha, that is an incredible achievement. I first want to ask, perhaps what's the emotional significance of this for you, knowing that this was an organization founded by your father, Pandit Reepu Daman Persaud?
I think sitting where I am right now brings it back even more emotionally for me because exactly 50 years ago, to the time we are sitting here, the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha was launched at this mandir, the Sri Krishna Mandir. And for me, it is with an immense sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment and achievement, but also a great sense of humility that fills us, all of us. And I say that because I don't think I speak for me, because we have achieved so much against so many challenges. And from that time to now, we have grown as an organization. And I think if my father was here right now, even he would have been thinking we have exceeded what he wanted to achieve. But the core of what we have achieved right now through the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha, bringing Hindus together, developing Hinduism across the country, hosting a myriad of programs, contributing them to the national tapestry, and expanding our ambit so that we are practically in every sphere, from education to health to well-being. He would feel, I think, immensely happy. And I feel some of that happiness because I think it's a great privilege to be able to carry on such a legacy that is such an important one too, that came out of very difficult and challenging times. So pride, humility, happiness, a gamut of emotions running through me at this point.
50 years ago, Ghana was a very different place. Can you tell us perhaps why was the Sabha founded?
The Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha was founded in very turbulent times. In the late 60s, Pandit Reepu Daman Persaud was the General Secretary of the Mahasabha. He joined this organization at the age of 20, and by the age of 25, he had moved from Assistant General Secretary to General Secretary. And in his own words, in his autobiography, he said that he felt the need to ensure that Hinduism was spread in a very pertinent way, a very applicable way to everyone who was in contact with it. And so he traveled the length and breadth of this country, meeting so many people across the country, especially young people, because these are my words now, because I think he was inherently charismatic and very dynamic at that age, he became very popular. And around that time, the country, this is now politically, was going through an upheaval. And so at that time, the Mahasabha, the leadership of the Mahasabha, wanted to cross the floor to join the PNC at that time. And my father felt that as a Hindu organization that represented Hindus in the country, it should be independent. And so he refused. And with his refusal, I think the majority of the Mahasabha stood with him, and people started to take a stand. And they pulled away from the Mahasabha. In fact, he was expelled from the Mahasabha. There was a court case that was done by the late Dudnath Singh, who resigned from the public service to represent my father. That case got him incredible fame, and with winning that case, my father was vindicated, but he did not return to the Mahasabha as General Secretary because people felt very strongly, because he was harassed, he was beaten. So many things were done to him because he just wanted Hinduism to be exactly what it was. Hinduism in its form, so that it could bring the kind of comfort, solace, and guidance to people across the country. A few years passed and people kept approaching him to start an organization. In Essequibo in particular, people saw him as someone who could lead the Hindu community, and so they asked him to begin leading the Hindu community. He still did not feel that he wanted to do that, but he got together with a group of men who felt the same way about him, and from the clamor for leadership to start within the Hindu community, the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha was formed as what we call a pracharak. And this was essentially to go around the country and to ensure that there was Hindu education, development, and there was unity among Hindus. Mandirs were working the way they ought to work and that kind of thing. But shortly after that movement, then there came the call to formalize this group. And so the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha was born right here on the 8th of January 1974 out of turbulence, but I think it has really been validated many, many times over as being not only the largest Hindu organization in Guyana and the region, but one that has provided exemplary leadership to the Hindu community over 5 decades. And from the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha's formation, members of the Better Hope Mandir asked for affiliation, and that started the affiliation of Mandirs to the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha. They insisted that they wanted the organization to grow, and so he developed, with the band of men that he had around him, at that time the committee was all men, they started the movement where we had the Prant, or the branches, the Mahila Mandali, women's group, Naujawan, Youth Arm, and with this structure, they were able to incorporate the affiliated mandirs, so that now we have over 100 mandirs across Guyana affiliated to the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha. But the motto was the defining thing of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha. The motto of action thy duty, reward not thy concern, was taken from the pages of the Bhagavad Gita. And this motto, it was felt, should resonate with every member of the Dharmic family, every member of the organization. So they felt a duty, a responsibility to always act in the best interests of every person across the Hindu community, beyond the Hindu community, and always for the best interest of Guyana and Hinduism. So that was where the organization came from.
I have to ask, at any point in the 50-year journey of the development so far of the Hindu Dharmic Sabha, has there ever been any sort of conflict where it was seen as too pro-Hindu, given Guyana as a multicultural society?
I'm glad you asked that, because one of the beautiful things about Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha was my father's visionary leadership style. In fact, he took a lot of our festivals from the walls, within the walls of the mandir, took it outward. Diwali, or Diwali Motorcade, which is significantly one of the largest festivals in this country, celebrated by everyone. That was his doing, and so is Holi, or Pagwa. He also advocated for Hindu holidays to become on the national calendar of holidays. And in doing all of this, he was able to foster good relations among many, many religious organizations, those from the Islamic community, those from the Christian community. He was instrumental in interreligious dialogue, cultural exchange, and ensured at all times that there was this, I would say, union, or this united voice among religious organizations every time there was anything that in any way could benefit people, affected people. And so he ensured from the onset of the organization, it was not one that was fanatic, but it was one that was grounded in the principles of Hinduism, never losing that pristine shape and form, but disseminated in such a way that it found acceptance, there was respect, there was understanding, and those were the things cultivated over that time to now, because we still practice all of those things started by Pandit Reepu Daman Persaud.
Right. At least for as long as I've been alive, which has not been for all of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha's existence, I've known it to be the Hindu organization for Guyana, the largest one, the voice, so to speak. However, I do recall in 2016 and the year before, there was some sort of conflict, perhaps, emerging between the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha and the Virat Sabha. How did the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha sort of navigate that situation? What has happened since then?
Dialogue. We've always believed in dialogue. We've always believed in sitting down and maturely discussing anything. And we managed to do that not only with that organization, but with all Hindu organizations. We actually sat and we had a discussion. We continue to do that because at the end of the day, as Hindu organizations, even if we have differences and disagreement, we should be able to sit down and rationally discuss why we have these differences and what is the best way forward for the benefit of the Hindu community. And we've always held that position. In all of the conflict, you would have never seen us coming across as aggressive or abrasive. We would have at all times advanced our reasons. We would have done educational outreach. We would have given information. And that is the way the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha's agenda is always. And as an organization, we believe too that outside of that, there must always be communication among the Hindu religious organizations. My father would have led that effort, and I continue to do it. We meet from time to time together to look at things of national interest. We meet from time to time to look at things together when it relates to legislation. And we meet from time to time, many times, to look at what Hinduism holds for the Hindu community in the future.
Do you think that has contributed to the very large support the Hindu Dharmic Sabha has received over the past 50 years?
I think people have seen us as consistent. They have seen us as committed, and they have seen us as an organization that stands independently, speaking on Hinduism, representing Hinduism, developing a series of programs, initiatives that have been throughout the 50 years of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha. They see us as always inclusive, always open to embracing more people, bringing people within the organization and family, and being able to advance the Hindu perspective not only nationally, but beyond the borders of Guyana. And in fact, in 2019, we were the recipient of the highest award from the government of India, in recognizing exactly all of this. And this is the Bharatiya Samman Award that is given to any organization or institution established by the Indian diaspora. And we were very humbled to be considered and so received that. In fact, I went to receive it then from the President of India. So I think people in Guyana would have seen what we are trying to do. And when we are consistent, we are reliable, we are responsible, and we adhere to exactly what we say, our motto of action, thy duty, reward not thy concern, they know there is no agenda. The only agenda is unity of the Hindu community, promotion and sustenance of Sanatan Vedic Dharma, development of our culture, our Dharma, our heritage, and our identity, our traditions in such a way that generations to follow can be proud of this and can carry it on.
You speak a lot about consistency. A lot of what we know of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha, and I'm talking the wider Guyanese society, would be the huge cultural events that you put on, but you're still grounded very firmly in Hinduism. When the Sabha started 50 years ago, was it always like that?
The Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha 50 years ago focused intensely on Mandirs and on keeping Hindus together because, as I mentioned earlier, it was very turbulent that time and people did not have the freedom to practice the way they should have. There were always things missing from the ingredients to do pujas. There were always moments of intimidation, moments where people did not feel as free as they should to practice. So the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha, specifically my father, started something called Prarthana Satsang. And this was in essence to get Mandirs together, congregating at various Mandirs, bringing Hindus together in a teaching environment, in an environment of sharing, in an environment of devotion. So those were the simple things it started with. From the Prarthana Satsang, which still continues now, he wanted to ensure certain traditions were not lost. Chautal Sammelan was born, still continues today, where Chautal groups have the opportunity to congregate at various mandirs, and it encourages the development of this tradition. He made sure Tan singing was something that was cultivated because that came out of the Loji environment, came out of the tradition that people brought with them during indentureship. Those are things that we embrace. And then it started to grow wider than that. Phagwa, Holy Utsav. Phagwa Mela and Bazaar, we call it Rangarasya now, but that's essentially what it is. And from Prarthana Satsang, I introduced Jagran, which is now taking that into the community. So it is very grounded in Sanatan Vedic Dharma. Diwali, we have Deep Jali, we have Diwali Motorcade. And so it is always centered around Hinduism, the facets of Hinduism, our festivals, our fasts. And then in this mandir, I can say I grew up in Bachoka Satsang because that's another initiative of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha where children are exposed to the tenets and principles of Sanatan Vedic Dharma. So the Hindu tradition, the Hindu culture, the Hindu value, philosophy and principles, very strong, very much what is central to who we are and what we do. But outside of all of that, Hinduism teaches us that we must engage in selfless service. And so we have forayed into all the social things that we're also known for. Bal Nivas, a home for children, that we look at the children in our country. It's our contribution, our dharmic play, primary, nursery, and now secondary school education. And then the Dharmic Sanskritik Kendra, now named the Pandit Reepu Daman Persaud Dharmic Sanskritik Kendra, ensuring that Pandits are trained and taught. And in fact, some of the Pandits were trained right here at this Mandir before then. And we are ensuring too that there is a strong cultural link that accompanies our religious background.
In all that you've done, do you still believe a role remains for the preservation of Hindu culture in Guyana?
There is always scope for improvement. There's always room for growth. And with the advent of technology and the fact that many young people are bombarded by information, everybody wants to know things faster. They want to engage differently, perhaps more creatively. It gives us the opportunity as the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha to utilize all of that. Yeah. So that social media is now a thing. Education can be done through social media, and through COVID, we started our online Hindi Sanskrit classes. We're going to expand that to Dharm Vidya. We're also teaching vocal music there. And so we have harnessed the now, the modern, the progressive, and captured it into what and who we are as the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha. So I think the beauty of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha, we're not static. We're quite dynamic. And when we look back 50 years ago, this organization was launched under the Adra Nakshatra, dedicated to Lord Shiva, who is the master of time and movement. So I think it is with that understanding that we have progressed. We have never been afraid to look at things holistically. We've never been afraid to engage in discussion. We've never been afraid to learn. And we will never be, I would say, prohibitive when it comes to seeing how we can do things to keep up with modernity, progress, and development in the world and nationally as well.
50 years now, what does the future look like?
I think the future looks beautiful because if we look at the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha structure, our prants are growing. We have now 9 prants across the country. We have a USA prant. We are looking at more persons across Guyana wanting to have mandirs in their communities. We've seen the growth of the mandir culture. We've seen more and more young people gravitating to Hinduism, being integrally involved in the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha, being proactive and passionate. We've seen leaders come out of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha over its 50-year period. And we've seen young people relate to the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha. So I think that's a great way to look at the future. Once they're people, once they continue to be a part of this rapidly expanding family, once Hinduism is alive, on which I feel it is completely alive, I do not subscribe to Hinduism's decline. I believe that the future looks boundless, and I will borrow from Pandit Reepu Daman Persaud's first address in 1975. He said, "The future is boundless and filled with opportunities," and 50 years later, I see it exactly the same way.
Talking about the future, I want to know what's in store for the youth who are part of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha.
There's a lot in store for the youth. We will continue to have a series of seminars, conferences. We're planning a National Hindu Conference. We are planning a National Pandits Conference. We're planning a National Hindu Youth Conference. We are going to be launching our Hindu quarterly newsletter, Dharmic Sabha. We're also going to be looking at how we could use more social media to engage young people more in terms of online classes, online courses. We've seen the success of that, and we are going to be looking at Dharm Vidya. Now, this is something that exposes from a child to an adult to Hinduism. So we're going to be offering those courses and classes so people can understand, relate to, respect, and appreciate Hinduism. And so the young people will never see Hinduism as something mythical, mystical, and something that they cannot understand. We want to make it relatable to young people, pertinent, pivotal to them. So we're going in that direction. And I want to say the next 50 years of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha will be youth-centered because we are looking at preparing the future, and the future involves young leaders, the next generation of leaders. And that is something the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha has always done, focused on young people, their development and their involvement, and importantly and significantly focused on the inclusion of women in its leadership. If you look at the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha, even if you look at our executive, it's more than 50% women. So that's the kind of legacy I think we will leave for another 50 years. And of course, we would want to grow some of our more established youth-centered programs like Naya Zamana, Naujawan Utsav, Kala Utsav, all completely centered around our young people. That's the culture. But we're also looking at developing young people so that they can speak on Hinduism, articulate Hinduism, and be able to do that at any level, whether here or beyond the borders of Guyana.
Right. As we're sort of winding down, there is one thing I have to ask you. You've been the president of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha for about 10 years now. What perhaps were some of the challenges you would say you've had to navigate, and how does that inform planning for the future?
I was elected twice as president, and I think the first election made me the first female president of any religious organization in Guyana. So I think that was something people had to get used to. Here was a very modern woman who really loved her religion, really practiced her dharma, but she was female. And that was in itself a challenge because people had to rethink how they saw leadership. So that was the first challenge. And I think the challenge is always there somewhat. And I would like to see that whole dynamics when it comes to women leadership, women being able to articulate their dharma, women being able to defend all of their cultural identity and heritage, that should be shattered. And I think the fact that I am here opens the door for more female leadership. So the other thing I feel that is essential, we need to have a more participation for our Hindu youths in areas in their communities. So we would like to look at developing, like we have the Dharmic Sanskriti Kendra in Prashad Nagar, we have a Kendra in Essequibo. We are looking at creating more of these venues so that people can have access to the same programs that we do beyond the doors of the mandir. We're very community oriented, so resources would be a challenge. We have built a school and we were looking at more resources to expand on what we have already done, because this is an organization that is voluntary, nobody is paid, and this is an organization that is not for profit. So with those things, getting everything we want to do at the pace that we want to do it sometimes could pose a challenge. But I will simply say this, whatever challenges I've experienced, I've grown from them, I've learned from them, and I've clearly understood with challenges comes a better understanding of what you should be doing in the future, where your focus should be, and how as a leader you will be able to navigate that in the future. So I have not looked at challenges and seen them as things to limit me or to limit the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha. So if we simply look at the motto, that's pretty much how I look at it, action thy duty. So get it done. Action thy duty and look for nothing at the end of it, because we believe in reward not thy concern, and it's taken from the Bhagavad Gita. Karmaneva dhikaraste ma phale shukadachana. And so no matter what challenges are there, we believe as Hindus in divinity, inherent divinity. We believe in Lord Shiva. And if we do, as I do, those challenges are easily surmounted. Might not be surmounted in the time frame that one envisaged, but they're definitely things that could be surmounted. And the beauty of it is the Dharmic network, the Dharmic family is fantastic. So my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to every single member of the Dharmic family for their overwhelming support of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha. It's a privilege to serve with all of them, to work with all of them in so many different ways, to provide leadership, and simply a privilege to be part of something as magnificent as the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha that has an incredible legacy. So I would not change it for a second, but one is as good as everyone around them, and to them goes all the credit and all my love and thanks for helping me to navigate 10 years more of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha, taking us to 50 years.
Thank you very much, Dr. Persaud.
Thank you, Vishani. It was an absolute pleasure. And happy anniversary to every member of the Guyana Hindu Dharmic Sabha, to everyone who would have supported us over 50 years of growth, development, service, and 50 years where we continue to serve tirelessly and committedly. Namaskar.